This week in Star Wars Comics, we're getting our first look at Galaxy's Edge. Not the theme park, but the 5-issue comic miniseries based on the theme park. Plus, that Stormtrooper with the green lightsaber is back again in Star Wars number 60. We'll take a look at his duel with Luke Skywalker and what happens next. And we get some interesting numbers when it comes to how well Star Wars Comics did in December. All that and much more right now on Beyond the Panel. Beyond the Panel number 3 on this January 24th, 2019. David with you and excited to share this moment with you, talking about this week in Star Wars Comics. If you haven't already, be sure you give this video a thumbs up. And if this is your first time to our channel, welcome. Be sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell too, so that way when I drop videos like this, episodes of Beyond the Panel, other kinds of videos, we go live for our weekly episode, you're the first to find out. So I don't want to waste any time, a lot to get to in a short amount of time on this week's episode. We're going to first start with an announcement that comes to us from StarWars.com, Marvel Journeys to Batuu, in this new Star Wars exclusive Galaxy's Edge comic book. Writer Ethan Sachs tells StarWars.com about setting a story at Black Spire Outpost, and crossover miniseries based on the new Star Wars themed park, coming to Walt Disney World Resort and Disneyland Resort later this year. Obviously, at both parks, this is still under construction, but it's pretty cool. It's described with pirates, smugglers, merchants, and wanderers from across the galaxy. They've traveled to make their score and sell some items at the infamous black market located at Black Spire Outpost. Issue number 1 is this April. It drops this April, and we'll go to this Outer Rim territory in this new Star Wars line. This is a 5-issue miniseries that will be the first where we will meet Doc Ondar. He is an Ithorian collector of rare antiques, and find out what happens when the First Order reaches the edge of wild space. The key to saving this lawless outpost might just involve a job pulled long ago by none other than Han Solo and his cohort Chewbacca. And we're also getting our first look. We're getting our first look at the design of this character, and I am pretty impressed. As far as the art goes, I just love like concept renderings of characters. It's really cool to me. And this is a variant cover design featuring Doc Ondar. He's designed by Carl Lindbergh and Ian McCaig for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge issue number 1. So this is the first cover. And on the left side of your screen, I'm showing you like the full cover. And then I zoomed in on his like torso on the right side of your screen, just because he has so many interesting necklaces, jewelry. He's got items around his waist, and I'm curious to know if there's anything that is maybe an Easter egg that's on his body. I mean, we get told in this description that I just read above that you have all these pirates and smugglers coming to Black Spire Outpost on Batuu, and there's all these these rare antiques that show up, and that Doc Ondar collects, these rare antiques. What could that be? I have a suspicion. And I don't know if anyone else is with me on this one, but I have a suspicion. I wonder if he somehow ties into how the lightsaber of Anakin Skywalker landed in the hands of Maz Kanata. That would be so great for me, is if he was the one that somehow came in possession of the lightsaber, and that he traveled to Takodana and was able to give the saber to Maz Kanata at some point. Or maybe Maz went to this Black Spire Outpost. I have no idea how it happens. I'm just speculating, but that would be a really cool tie-in. And I also like in this description that we're hearing that maybe Han Solo and Chewbacca had to pull off this daring mission to save the outpost, which is always interesting when a smuggler tries to save other smugglers or outposts. We've seen that in Star Wars before. I'm also really intrigued by what happens when the First Order shows up. So this is, I'm not exactly sure when this time period is exactly for this comic book issue. If we're referencing the First Order, I think it's probably safe to say that this is somewhere around The Force Awakens. I could be wrong, but I'm really excited to learn more about what's going on here. And I want to go ahead and I'll pull this back up real quick just because they did an interview with Ethan Sachs, who will be writing this. And they asked him, if you didn't know, he was actually the one that wrote the Jedi Master Mace Windu story in the Star Wars Age of Republic special that I talked about last week in detail on Beyond the Panel. It was an exceptional story. I love this idea that this like terrorist captures Mace Windu, tries to kill him. Mace Windu outsmarts him, actually led the Jedi right to this hideout the entire time. Very cool. And Ethan Sachs kind of breaks down his excitement about telling the Mace Windu story. And he just talks about how it was self-contained and fairly easy to write once he came up with the basic story, which I like that he goes into this. He goes, Age of Republic was self-contained and fairly easy to write once I came up with the basic story idea. While Galaxy's Edge has intertwined stories over several eras, including Han Solo and Chewbacca adventure, a very specific dream comes true. So plotting to fruition was kind of like playing a high-stakes hand of sabacc on an active Dejarik board, rather. Fortunately, I have great editors in Mark Panacea and Thomas Groneman to help me navigate that asteroid field. So I thought, why not showcase the comic book that he was involved with last week and just talk about kind of how he's excited. He's excited to be a part of Star Wars storytelling. And, you go elsewhere in this interview, he talks about how, his fandom has been lifelong ever since seeing the movie, the original Star Wars in 1977 as a 4-year-old and hearing John Williams score for the very first time in the theater. And he says how that had such a personal impact on him. And so what I'm also really interested about is we do get some insight here about we have this character, Dok-Ondar, and we're just who the heck is this guy? What's he about? And Ethan says there is a reason that his name ripples far and wide in the Star Wars universe. He's a mysterious Ithorian who is a proprietor of the most notorious antique shops in the galaxy, and every item has a story behind it, some dangerous to listen to than others. Some more dangerous to listen to than others. So this is where my Maz Kanata thing and the whole Skywalker saber comes into play. The most notorious antique shop in the galaxy, and every item has a story behind it. Well, we even got to see the saber story in The Force Awakens, that flashback that Rey has, that Force flashback when she comes in contact with a saber. I'm just saying, I could be really off base here, but that's where my mind goes. And if that's what we end up getting, that's exciting. And if we get something else, that's fine too, because I like this guy. It's Laura Santeco is not this character in The Force Awakens, but I like this character that's been around the galaxy, collects these things, has secrets. There's more you can explore. BTW, we should totally have more story with Laura Santeca. I need that. What a great character. We got to spend only such little time in The Force Awakens. But nevertheless, really excited about this series. There is one more thing that I want to talk about, and I'll go ahead and pull the website one more time. He's talking about how the series will give fans a chance to visit Black Spire Outpost months ahead of voyaging to Batuu in person, because, of course, the theme park comes out later this year. Armed with top-secret sketches and information from Walt Disney and Imagineering and Lucasfilm, we are keeping this authentic to the spirit of this rich new setting. I tell you more, but I already have a death sentence in 12 systems. So, of course, reserve your copy of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge #1 at your local comic book shop. Pre-order that bad boy. Have it ready for you in your pull and hold, so that way in April we can all come back here and talk about the first issue and what we think about it. Now, with that said, we have comic books that came out this week, and it kind of is the lone comic book of this week. You are watching episode 3, issue number 3. Should we call these issues or episodes? Issues because that's a comic book pun. Episodes because I'm doing a video episode. You let me know. But nonetheless, episode 3, issue 3, it's January 24th. Having a great time with you. Diving in now to the comic book of the week, and that is Star Wars number 60. That is the Star Wars number 60, rather. I just wanted to I got so excited about the comics coming out next week that I flashed those up at you. But let's stay in the present. Here's the present. 48 hours ago we got Star Wars number 60, and it's an interesting story that takes us back to Hubin, and that's where we've been this last arc, where our rebel heroes have been trapped on this planet for several months because this planet itself doesn't have contact with the outside world. And so we pick back up. Luke is about to duel Krell, who is the leader of Scar's squadron. And Han and Leia are out stunned. They're out. We're following the customs of this planet, which is that these two duel it out. Krell comes charging. He acknowledges, since the first time these two dueled back way ago in the main Star Wars line, Luke is better defense, but he doesn't cover the ground. I just think it's interesting because I never thought there would be a stormtrooper with a lightsaber. I don't really like the concept. I'm okay with Scar Squadron, having these, commando-type troopers, but I'm not really a big fan of, a stormtrooper wielding around a lightsaber. I've mentioned this before on Beyond the Panel. I mentioned it on our live show, that I don't see how Vader would be cool with the trooper wielding a saber. Doesn't work for me. It works for others, and that's great. What I do like, though, is there's recognition that Luke is slowly improving his skill set. He has to go somewhere from just igniting a lightsaber in Ben's hut in Star Wars to being able to hold his own against Vader. Vader could have easily killed him in Empire, and I know that as that battle plays out, it's more that Vader is toying with Luke, and ultimately he's going to reveal who he truly is in Luke's life. Still, I dig it. As far as what we get here, the approach of showing Luke's progress as a fighter. Now, what happens is Luke, as you've seen played out on your screen, does not last long in this battle. And that's by choice. If he stays in the saber duel, he probably dies. I think that's a fair assumption. He probably gets killed by Krell. And that would be a little unfortunate. So he has a smoke bomb that he gets from his love interest in this in this comic book. Her name is Tula. And, of course, she's the daughter of Thane, who is kind of like the ruler of this moon planet, okay? And so he gets this smoke bomb, and he does like 3 or 4 strikes with Krell, and then he throws the smoke bomb, and he runs into the woods, and he ends up going to the gravesite. There's, that's just the location that he's told to meet by Tula. That's all part of the plan. You think that Thane is actually betraying Luke and the Rebels, and he's trying to help the Empire kill them. No, it's a plan that he and Tula have conceived. Thane ends up meeting up with Luke in the graveyard, but you're wondering, how the heck did Scar Squadron find the Rebels? Well, you get a familiar face back, Sana Starros, who was originally pitched as Han Solo's wife when she made her debut in the comic books. And it turns out that she suffered pain from an interrogation droid, the floating, levitating black ball, that they have in A New Hope that has the long needle there that they try and attack Leia with. She is victimized. She's a victim of cruelty, of assault, I guess, if you want to use a term from our world. And she ends up leading Scar Squadron to Hubin. So that's how we learn that. Now, go back to the graveyard. You're seeing it play out on the screen. Scar Squadron is attacking Thane now because Thane is stalling for Luke to go get his friends, Leia and Han, and to board and steal Scar Squadron's ship. And not only are they taking the ship, they're taking, like, the village. Tula comes down and is like, we want to fight with you. We want to go with you. We want to help you with your rebellion. Thane talks about how he has experienced who the Empire is and how he has a past of decision-makings that leads there to be a lot of blood on his hands. And now he's met who these people in the rebellion are, and he feels that, we got to team up with the rebellion. So he sacrifices himself to allow Luke and friends to get away and his village to get away. And now you start to also see another way how the rebellion builds up its numbers, how it gets its pilots, its fighters. There's men, there's women, there's children that are fleeing this situation. And overall, I really like what Kieran Gillen has done with this. It's with a comic in general. I'm not necessarily a fan of this arc. It truly does feel like filler, and especially now that we have Scar Squadron involved with the storyline, because here we are for months at this time hanging out on Hubin. We know that the story is transitioning from closer to Star Wars. Now it's going to be closer to Empire Strikes Back. And I so desperately keep saying it every time, and I will continue until we get it, if we ever do get it. So this could be a long time. But I want to see what happens when Han Solo encounters that bounty hunter in Nord Mandel. I want that story told in comic book form. I think that would be exciting. Or maybe it's one of those situations where it's better not to, so that way we can always pretend when we hear that line in Empire Strikes Back, we always have this ridiculous story that we've dreamt up in our heads. Have that headcanon. Headcanon, it still can be, relevant and let you have some fun in the Star Wars playground. I don't know. I know that Ord Mantell, they had pod racer scenes. Maybe it's a pod race that comes back. I think fans would lose their mind if pod racing came back into Star Wars, but I think it would be great. So that's kind of a breakdown of what we get here with Star Wars number 60, and those are the big things. Sana Starros is back in the helm, or not at the helm, but she's back involved with the crew. She's able to escape the Scar Squadron. and the Empire with our rebels at the end of this comic book. And this comic ends with Squadron having to kill these creatures. I mean, they don't have to kill them. I guess they could just maim them. But these are the Thandrax that you saw, these big, muscular, beastie creatures. They are... I hope they just destroy Squadron. One, because I can't say Star Squadron correctly. I just did there, but I've tripped over it every other time, I think. And again, the other thing is, I don't need... I can appreciate this attempt to create these high-end, highly skilled, functional stormtroopers. They're kind of reminiscent of like the Republic Commandos to me in a way. I just don't do stormtroopers with sabers, and I don't see why troopers need capes. It just seems like we needed another obstacle for our heroes over this 3 to 4 year stretch, and here is Scar Squadron. So that's my take. I want to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments below. Love to have a conversation about this because I'm excited to see where this comic goes, because we know that Kieran only has a few more issues left, and we still have to find out who is going to take over this comic run. You know that I desperately want Charles Soule to take on the main Star Wars run for the next couple of years as his involvement in the Star Wars community. I think it makes the most sense. You know, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. Star Wars didn't do that great when it comes out to sales in December of last year. Now, granted, on the top 100 list a few times with Diamond Comics, but I was actually kind of surprised. I thought they'd be a little bit higher, especially the finale to Charles Soule's Darth Vader. But I digress. We'll talk about that in moments. The important thing here is I want Charles Soule to helm Star Wars. I think that would be a genius move by Marvel. I have to believe that they're in talks. I don't know that. I don't have proof of that. That's speculation. But I go back to a tweet that Charles Soule had a couple of weeks ago where he talks about how he wants to still play in the Star Wars sandbox. Specifically, he wants to play with characters that he's created in his Darth Vader run. Now, that could mean a slew of things. You go to Momin, who is this Sith Lord, comes back to present time through this mystical mask that Vader uncovers, or the Empire uncovers, and Vader kind of brings back to life in a way, so that way he can finish his castle on Mustafar. Don't even need to read the comics anymore because I just told you everything. No, go back. You got to read the comic books. But he also played a lot with the Inquisitors. He also did a lot of exploration with Jocasta Nu, leading up to her death. Maybe he does a miniseries with Jocasta Nu. I have no idea, but I think it would make the most sense for Marvel, based on the success of Darth Vader, of Charles Soule's Darth Vader run, and the fact that fans have really enjoyed the Poe Dameron run that he did that ended. And I also was a big fan of the Obi-Wan and Anakin 5-part miniseries that he did a few years ago. I don't have anything bad to say about his work. I mean, I've been on the record saying that the Poe Dameron issue is more hit and miss for me, depending on the issue. But it's still great work and overall beloved by the comic book reading fan, so would love to see Charles Soule get it. Let's talk about comics coming out next week, though, because it's not like this week, slow week. This week we only had 3 comics. No, I'm sorry. We're going to have 3 comics coming out on January 30th. This week, yesterday, Wednesday, we only had that one Star Wars number 60 drop. But coming out January 30th, we are going to have Star Wars Adventures number 17, Solo: A Star Wars Story adaptation number 4, Dr. Aphra 28, and Not Pictured is volume 4 of Charles Soule's Darth Vader, collecting issues 19 through 25. We'll talk about all these comics next week. I probably will start doing a thing where, just for your benefit, that for you watching this show with me and playing in the chat and commenting down below, we'll talk about all the comics here on this show. But I think that the comic book talk is going to become a lot more specified on the live show. In case you didn't know, we do a live show every Sunday, 11 a.m. Central Time. And instead of trying to break down all the comics anymore on the main show, that's what's going to happen here on Beyond the Panel. But if there's something very controversial or something very intriguing about one particular comic, we will just focus on that. And we will still talk about, we'll mention the comics that came out that week. We'll mention what's coming out next week just to give you another reminder. But it's going to be a lot more focused Star Wars comic conversation there on the main live show. So I'm actually really excited about that kind of change in how we're going to, approach comic book discussion here with Beyond the Blast Doors and, of course, this show, Beyond the Panel. So the next thing I want to talk about is comic book rankings. December Star Wars comics charted, and we're talking about in terms of sales with like comic book shops. So you go to Diamond Charts, and this is where a lot of people use this. And so I'm scrolling through here. I'm just going to try and show you where Star Wars comics land. No Star Wars comics in the top 25. You notice I scrolled right past the top 25. Two of the Age of Republic issues did very well. At number 30, you do have Star Wars 58. You have Darth Vader, number 25, coming in at number 32. And that's followed by Age of Republic, number 1 at number 33. So 3 Star Wars titles right outside the top 25 at 30, 32, and 33. And I would say in itself, that's a cool accomplishment just because there's so many Marvel lines, especially. There's, DC does its fair number, of course, with the Rebirth run and all of the other offshoots that it does. But Marvel in itself, there's a lot of competition to be a top dog. So I am cool with this listing. I mean, really, the listing doesn't impact me. I am kind of surprised. I thought Darth Vader, number 25, would have cracked the top 25. I thought that there was enough buzz on this series. I thought there were enough Star Wars fans following this run. Just outside the top 25, coming in at number 32. We also have Age of Republic. I'll bring myself. I don't know why that ran out, but trying to show the website. We'll bring it back here. I do also have here on the list Age of Republic, Qui-Gon Jinn, number 44. Dr. Aphra, 27, was number 79. Han Solo, Imperial Cadet, number 2, is number 28. Let's see if I can bring this right back up now. Here we go. And I am really a fan of just being able to go right down the list like this. And it's a new toy that's allowing me to actually show you the screen captures. So always trying to upgrade the show where I can, make improvements. I do want to point out, though, that even Solo: A Star Wars Story, the adaptation run, has made an appearance on this list. For the month of December, Star Wars, Solo: A Star Wars Story adaptation, the third issue, number 3, came in at 122. Star Wars Adventures number 16, 168 on the list. And Star Wars Adventures Destroyer Down number 2 at number 182. I'm not really surprised when the Star Wars Adventures is so low on the list. These are comic books that are targeted for the kids. These are for young children. I mean, I know that there's some collectors that will just grab them all because it's Star Wars, and that's totally cool. But the little ones are reading the Star Wars Adventures comics, and mommy and daddy are the ones buying them the comics. I don't know how many kids of the age are going to their LCS and buying these comics. Now, if you are one of those, whether you're you're a cool kid reading those books, or you're a cool parent that's buying those books for your kids, comment down below and tell me, what you think as a parent or what you think as a reader, as a kid, what you like about these books. I think from my perspective, being 26 years old, is the story is just very stretched out, limited dialogue. It's a basic book, and it doesn't really impact my understanding of canon or my enjoyment of the franchise. But to each their own, and that's the whole point of what we do here on Beyond the Blast Doors, is to each their own. We just want to have a fun conversation. Not surprised that they're coming down so low, just because it is for the kids. Again, biggest surprise, Darth Vader number 25. Thought that would be higher. Pretty happy to see the Solo adaptations on the list. That is exciting because there are little nuggets that are extra from what we get in Solo: A Star Wars movie, which is a great Star Wars movie. I think what excites me the most, because I knew that Darth Vader would be high. Thought it'd be higher than what it was at 32. But I'm excited to see all the Age of Republic comics in the top 50. Or rather, Darth Maul was number 33. You had the Qui-Gon issue at number 44. That's great. And Qui-Gon, Jodie Hauser, that comic, I mean, she wrote all these Age of Republic stories, but that Qui-Gon issue got a second reprinting, which is a major success. And because it got a second reprinting, I thought it would be higher than the Maul issue. Very interesting. Very interesting. What do you think about how the sales shook out for December of 2018? let me know down in the comments below. I would be interested into knowing what you're thinking. And I'm not trying to ignore you. I was trying to pull up the screen again just to do one more run through. I do want to mention, graphic novels, Kieran Gillen's Hope Dies arc, which collected Star Wars Volume 9. That was given, it was number 5. So that's a nice success. When we're talking about graphic novels and it's at number 5, that's huge. The final volume of Poe Dameron, the title was Spark and Fire. It was Spark and Fire. That finished at number 19. So, your Star Wars books, individual issue, and again, keep in mind that Diamond Charts, the sales are only direct market only, so not digital, okay? 2, 3, 5 comics in the top 50, okay? I think Star Wars would take that. A couple more at, number 79, 98. I think overall that's a decent December. Still, I mean, I've said it 3 times at this point. I'll say it one more time. Darth Vader number 25 is a little bit lower than I expected. But hey, what are you going to do about it? Maybe that just means that while we have a few more days left here in January, we go out there and we buy as many Star Wars comics as possible. Because we have to keep our local comic book shops alive. And it's a good time, there's never a bad time to shout out our sponsor, the Maplewood Fantasy Shop. The Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri. It's in St. Louis, in a suburb of Maplewood. I over-explained that, but, St. Louis is kind of a weird thing the way it's structured. But they've got everything. They've got comics, collectibles, toys, games, Magic the Gathering, everything you could want. You can get that at the Maplewood Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving the St. Louis area since 1981, and they've been a great support of our channel. Really excited about what's going to happen in 2019 with them. I'm going to have some giveaways. Have some pretty cool giveaways here for Beyond the Panel even, but also larger giveaways on the live show. Got to support the main show, but here on Beyond the Panel, I think we're going to be able to do some pretty incredible things. At one time, we were giving away weekly comics, and we weren't really able to keep up with it in the sense that by the time you got those books, you'd already read the story. It's like, what was the point of getting those books, right? So we'll do something different. We're going to do themed baskets. We'll do things very simple. To enter, all you have to do is comment on the video. Like, we can't make it any simpler than that, right? And then if you share it on social media, like Facebook or Twitter, and tag us, that'll give you 3 additional entries into the contest. So that's how it will work. We will announce that giveaway, those contests, shortly. So that's going to do it for issue number 3, episode number 3. I'm not quite sure. Let me know down below if I should call them number 3s, issue number 3s, episodes. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I'd also just like to know what you think about everything we talked about in the episode. And remember, you can comment as many times on the video. I really try hard to respond to everybody. Talk to me about what you think about the Galaxy's Edge comic book. Talk to me what you think about this week's comic book in Star Wars 60. Do you buy a stormtrooper wielding a lightsaber? Do you hope that Scar Squadron altogether just goes away? I want to know down in the comments below. And then, of course, when we take a look at the sales, what hope do you have for Star Wars comics and just comics in general in 2019? Do you hope that sales continue to pick up? Do you like seeing so much Star Wars represented in the top 50? I think that can only be a good thing. But there are some people who think there's an oversaturation of Star Wars comic book lines, and so which is very interesting to me. So I want to know what you're thinking. So with that said, if you haven't already, be sure you give me a thumbs up. If this is your first time on our channel, thank you so much for watching this episode, and be sure you hit the subscribe button and hit the bell, so that way when I drop new episodes of Beyond the Panel, canon dives, live Lego builds, we do a lot of random things. We just like trying doing diverse content. We do a lot of cosplay stuff. We're about to break down. Jesse just bought this massive Mandalorian jetpack for his cosplay. We're going to talk about that this Sunday. It's going to be awesome. If you want to know all about that, when we go live for our live show, which is going to be episode 56 this week, Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Central. You can always catch us on the Rewind as well. But hang out with us in the live chat. It's always a lot of fun. You can check that out. But you're only the first one to know if all of that happens if you click the bell. So be sure you do that. Thanks again for watching episode 3, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.